ever let you down? Will it ever get sunny? Oh, I wonder, honey, baby, how you make me sway. You say you will. I'm calling your addicted friend. You say you will, yeah. I'm crossing the obsessive line.
Well, happy Saturday.
Hey there, y'all.
Happy Saturday to you.
Happy Saturday, indeed.
We are here at the virtual happy hour, and it's going to be an awesome, awesome hour. We have a very special guest. We have Michael Price that is joining us.
I am so excited to talk to him because I got to say, well, he's the co-creator of F is for Family.
Absolutely.
The animated show on Netflix, and wow.
And Emmy award-winning writer for The Simpsons. I mean, how do you get struck by lightning like that twice?
Well, I'll tell you, it's by creating great stories, and I am in love with F is for Family.
It's a great, we're going to get all into that because there's so many layers to this season that I want to get the inside track from Michael. So with that, I am going to actually bring up Michael right now. We got him waiting in the wings. Mr.
Hey.
Price.
Hi, guys.
Great to see you again.
Cheers.
Great to see you. Great to see you, too. Cheers. Happy Saturday.
Yes, and we're also bringing up here our good friend and co-host of ours, Mr. Swami, Malta de Montreal. How you doing, buddy?
I'm okay. My daughter was on the computer all day chatting with Chris D'Elia, so I couldn't get on. It was really weird.
Ouch.
Well, that's one way to look at it, right?
Seems like a nice guy.
That's awesome. So, Michael, I know that this is a very weird time for us all. I mean, how are you spending your time now? Because I know that you had, F is for Family in the can for a while now. But are you still doing The Simpsons on a regular basis in a different way, or how's that working now?
Yeah, we just finished our 16th week of writing The Simpsons this way via Zoom. So we have a Zoom writers room that we started like in, second week of March, I guess. Of course, like with everyone, it felt really weird. And what are we doing? And how are we going to make this happen? And at the beginning, and now it just seems like this is what we do, and it's worked out, and we're able to get through it. I mean, because writing a TV show is we're just basically, when we're able to be there, we're sitting around a table, and now we're sitting around a virtual table, and we're able to get through it somehow. And thank God, I mean, with animation, it can be produced this way, so we haven't missed a beat. The actors, it's just a period of adjustment. The actors were all sent high quality recording equipment, like really good microphones, and they've turned their closets, their kitchens, their living rooms into recording studios. And so we've done recordings that way. We've done table reads that way. And the animators are able all to work from home on their computers and tablets. And so Simpsons will continue. We won't miss a beat. We'll keep making our shows. And it's just in general, I believe animation in general is still happening.
Yeah, my daughter just graduated from SCAD as an animation graduate, and
good. We need her.
Yeah, well, I'll be sending over a resume later, Michael. No, but she was saying the same thing, that she's talking right now to Netflix and some other studios, that they're like, well, if we do hire you, you could just work from home. It's like, really?
I know, it's fascinating. It's amazing how it lends itself to our new way of working now. I find that fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, there was an animation boom going on before this, thanks to Netflix and a lot of the new streaming channels and animation. I love animation, so we had a hard time finding animators to work on our show, just because there is so much going on. So I imagine there's even more right now. So yeah, your daughter is entering the field at the right time.
That's good. Get her in the boom. That's what I like.
Yes.
Hey, Michael, back to the writer's room, just quickly on The Simpsons. One thing I thought about is, doing those remotely, doing Zooms, and I've had to adjust the same way for my job, that everything is all remote and all our meetings are remote. But the interesting thing is for yours, the creative side of this, when you're doing table reads, are the jokes landing the same? Do you find that you have to adjust based on that?
Yeah, you have to, because it's different. The way that Zoom and these other these apps work, it's hard to hear everybody laughing, because if one person's talking, then they kind of cut out the other people. So it's been a period of adjustment, but we're we had a table read just the other day on Thursday for a really great script by Christine Nangle, and we were all there. It's been easier now we get guest stars. If people are guest starring on the show, we're able to call them up and say, hey, would you want to be in the table read as well? So this script that Christine wrote has Fat Tony, Joe Mantegna in it, so he was there. He zoomed in, and we also had Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman in it, and they were zooming in from their house. And I wrote a script that we did a couple of weeks ago that is going to have a cameo from J.J. Abrams. So he zoomed into the table. People have some time on their hands now. so that's been good. It's been hard. It's super hard not being around. I had to go by the Fox studio the other day just for a minute to see if I can find something in my office, and it's weird. It's kind of desolate there. It's like a ghost town, and I miss it. And I think we'll all be happy when we can go back. But right now, we'll be okay until we can.
Is there any word in California when that next wave hits to where you can actually get back into the studios?
Boy, yeah, we don't know. There's no need to right now, so there's no reason to put anybody at risk right now. As for us, I think they keep coming out with these guidelines of how they can begin physical production of non-animated shows, and I don't have to work on those yet. So we'll see. I think they'll find some way to make it happen, but I think the paramount concern has to be safety. And
I think California's done a pretty damn good job considering the size of its state. You guys have the same population as my entire country, and I think we had 5,000 deaths or something like that, which is a lot. Yeah. You'd say, but compared to the rest of the states who have lower amounts of people, California's done pretty good on their infection rate.
I think so too. I'm pretty happy with the way everything's been run with our leader, with our governor and our mayor of LA. Have done a pretty good job on that.
About it, Gavin Newsom's just too good looking to be a governor out.
He's a Hollywood governor. He's a movie star governor. So
exactly.
And you're in Montreal, is that right?
Yep.
That's where we make F is for Family. I don't know if you know that, but that's where our animation studio is in Montreal. It's called Oasis Animation, and that's where our show is drawn and animated.
Not surprised. We're known really for animation, video games, and porn in Montreal.
Just like LA. Only the Valley.
That's right.
Now, I wanted to get into F is for Family because we had so many questions, and we, obviously we binged the whole season when it came out. We did that for the last, previous 3 before season 4 came out here. And oh my God, I know you have 3 Emmys right now, but clear a space on the mantle for 4th season.
Yeah. I have to say, just the character development, and personally, I think the addition of the grandfather really just added such a new dimension and insight into the dad. What was the idea behind adding him to the character lineup for this season?
Well, we sometimes, these things that become for lack of a better word, like the cliffhangers or the kicker at the end of the season, we often come on those at the very end. Like the end of season 2 ended with them, well, I guess with the audience discovering that Frank and Sue are going to have another baby. Mm-hmm. When you sort of see that our friend Smokey has been poking holes in content. So that came about at the end as well. Originally, our original plan for that season, that 2nd season, was going to end with them kind of separating with them, going through all this horrible trouble they had in season 2, and then getting in one more giant fight, and then kind of separating, and it was going to end with Frank moving down into the basement with Kevin and all that stuff. and as we wrote it, we got to the end of that last episode, and we had put these characters through so much hell, and we loved them so much that we all looked at each other and we said, we can't do that. Let's not do that to these guys. We love them and we want them to stay together. So then we said, well, we need something else to happen at the end of the season. And that's when we hit on this idea of like, oh, what if they use one of Smokey's condoms? Because we'd written that thing about Smokey poking holes in condoms as just a joke.
Right.
I think I pitched it just like 1, 2, 3, baby, whatever, just a funny thing. Right. And then we're like, oh, maybe that could be it. So then that happened. And then as we wrote season 3, if you're familiar with the show, anybody who's watching it, you know, a big plot of season 3 was about the Vince Vaughn character and, you know, his wife, the Vietnamese war bride wife, and that we found out that she's been slowly poisoning him all along and that she poisoned him at the end of the season. So our original ending for season 3 was going to be that the police came and took Sue Murphy away as kind of an accessory to murder, and to almost to the end, the very last scene was the cops coming and leading her off, and Frank saying like, "What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" You know, like that, and then we realized like it was too corny, and it was like, you know, and it's not. We're not gonna send our main character to jail for the rest of her life, you know. So we said again, it was like, well, what do we do instead? And then we realized that so much of season 3 was about Frank being a father, you know, his neglect of his own kids. And then Bill Burr had written that amazing episode that was the second to last episode where Frank told that story about his father, you know, heckling him and harassing him at his school play, and how I never wanted to be like my dad. Of course, you know, Kevin slept through it, but but then we realized, oh, wait a minute, what if his father showed up? So the good thing about making this show like this is that because none of the episodes come out until they're all finished, and they're all in various stages of production, we had enough time to sort of go back into the earlier episodes and salt some things in. Once we knew where we were going, we were able to add that thing. There's a thing where the postcard came in the mail, but they didn't see it because they were on vacation and all that stuff. So we were able to sort of put that back in, but then we added the father then. But then once we got picked up, we're like, okay, well, who is this guy? You know, we had no idea. That's why if you watch the end of season 3, he's just like a shadowy figure in a taxi cab, because we literally had no idea what he should look like, who would play him, who he was. And then once we got picked up,
casting on that, whoever did the casting for Jonathan Banks, genius.
Yeah, well, I will tell you that came from Peter Billingsley, who's our one of our executive producers through Vince Vaughn's production company, which is called Wild West. So Jonathan had been in a movie with Vince that Peter directed that was a couple of years ago, and so they knew him from there. And we had a hard time. I won't say who it was. We had a bunch of different actors that we were looking at, and we thought about, but they weren't available. They couldn't do it. I think Jonathan's name came up early on, but he was too busy because he was in the middle of filming Better Call Saul. So we got down to it where it's like, we've got to find somebody. We've got to get somebody in here to do this because we're running out of time. And then it just happened that Better Call Saul was wrapping production by then, and Jonathan was available, and Peter suggested him, and they called him, and he said he would do it. And he loves Bill already because he'd worked with Bill on Breaking Bad.
I was going to say, I thought that was the connection that Bill said, you know, hey, I worked with this guy on Breaking Bad. It would be great to be my dad, but you know, it just flipped around the other way.
But it made so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, everything happens for a reason. I guess it was a blessing that it took that long, because by the time we were, he was available, that he could do it. We would have done it. We would have gotten him in at the beginning, but again, we were told he was unavailable. He was too busy, filming Breaking Bad. So, I mean, Better Call Saul. So then finally he was available, and he came in, and he was just a delight and wonderful. And he had some stories about his own father, that sort of colored his interpretation of the character. And he was just fantastic.
How much of these stories come from real life? I mean, I'm sure, obviously, the sort of imagery and the craziness of the time period we all recognize, but the stories, how personal are they?
To a various degree, very, very much so. I mean, if you've ever seen Bill's stand-up, he talks a lot about his own dad, and a lot of Frank comes from Bill Burr's own dad, like his, I don't know, his delightful catchphrase, "I will put you through that fucking wall,"
Yes.
comes from Bill's own dad. I mean, Bill's own dad would say that. And according to Bill, Bill's own dad did things like, gave him a girl doll because he cried, that kind of thing. So a lot of that stuff that's in Frank comes from Bill's dad. Some of Frank comes from my dad. And then as we got started talking about Frank's dad, we looked at that as well. And, I've met Bill's dad. I met him a couple of years ago at backstage after a show. And he is just to my mind, I met him. He's a very sweet, wonderful man. He's an older man now. And he is, but then Bill would say, like, yeah, but you didn't see him when, back when I was a kid, so that's where the genesis of that came. That's where we spent that whole first episode that I wrote, the one where Frank is at the church in the confessional with the priest, just building up how awful this guy was to Frank when he was a kid, and we wrote those flashbacks of him being so mean and awful to him and beating him with a polio crutch and all that stuff.
Had me in hysterics.
And of course, replaying later the thing that happened at the school play. And that it would be such a huge thing that when he finally showed up, he's a very little man, and we deliberately filmed or drew the flashback scenes to emphasize how big he was, because when you're a kid, that's what you think, that's what you see. Right. And I've seen people write about it on Reddit or whatever, saying like, how come he's so little? And I think he always was that way, but in the memory, the flashbacks are Frank's memory. So in his memory, his dad was this giant guy looming over him. But yeah, so he's this little small man now. He's very sweet, apparently very sweet. But of course, as we started developing the character and figuring it out, I believe it was my pitch that, like, a couple episodes in, he would reveal himself to be like, you can't change that much, and that moment came when he takes little Bill to the sporting goods store, when he reveals himself to be who he really is again, so it was fun, because I realized that we couldn't make 10 episodes of just Frank and his dad yelling at each other. Like, that would be uninteresting, and it would be, you couldn't take it. So it felt like a fun way to plot out. I look at every season as kind of like a 3-act play. And so the first act this relationship was like the comic idea of, like, Frank is the only one who sees him as this terrible guy, and everyone else thinks he's wonderful, and it drives Frank up a wall. And then it gets to the point where he reveals himself, and he starts to realize that maybe he's not so great, the dad, and that in the middle part of the season, they come together again and have that nice moment, a couple of nice moments in those middle episodes that ends with that hug they have on the bridge. And then it would twist one more time to the point where, like, because we kept writing Sue's character saying, like, one hug isn't going to solve, 40 years of neglect, and that it comes out one more time until we finally get to them having some kind of
and we don't want to obviously give any big spoilers for how that
resolves
itself at the end. But wow, an amazing resolution! I was just blown away. I'm like, ooh.
It's just poignant.
I'll tell you that. I mean, again, I won't spoil it, but that was another thing where we had a different ending in mind, and then it didn't quite work. It was an ending that was more about what happens. Again, I won't spoil it. About what happens with Vic, the Sam Rockwell character. There is a moment you see in the final episode that gives his story a little bit of closure, and we were gonna kind of end the season on that. But again, it was like, yeah, but it's funny, but it's not really Frank's story anymore. So what's Frank's story? So then we came up with what you'll see.
I was about to ask that, actually, because I'm a big fan of Vic's character. I love Sam Rockwell's character in the show. Is he going to be back a bit more in season 4, or are you guys slowly kind of writing him off the show? Does he need to start doing other?
Oh no, you haven't seen season 4 yet, right? You haven't seen it. No. He's huge in season 4. Baby. Oh, he's got a big part in season 4. Big.
4's already out.
Yeah,
It's out
oh, yeah.
right now. Came out a week
It
ago.
just came
That's
out.
what we're
Where have you
talking
been,
about.
Where have you been, Swami?
I didn't renew my Netflix last month.
Crawl out of that whiskey bottle and watch
They have Netflix in
Netflix.
Canada, you know. Netflix does exist in Canada on the same
No,
timeline.
I didn't watch season 4 yet. I saw season 3. I just ended season 3 about 2 weeks ago, and I didn't know.
It's there. It's there. Good. Well, we want more people to watch it, so you know.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go out. And
Yeah.
matter of fact, for everyone.
Yeah, no, he's
that's
a
watching.
very big. Vic is a very big storyline in season 4
All right, good.
that takes his life in a slightly different direction.
Well,
Yeah.
I find it interesting with the Vic character this season, and again, no spoilers, but that Vic, it was always in seasons 1 through 3 was the cool guy. Just the cool neighborhood guy that everyone's like,
But
yeah, a
he's-
little smarmy, but it's still the cool guy.
And he's aging, and
But
it
he's
just
aging
feels
and a
so
little
natural. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just a little
Yeah.
sadness, a little line of sadness.
Well, there always
to his character.
was. I mean, even in the very first season, he is that guy, you know. And then at the end of the very first season, he has that giant Christmas party with the reindeer running around and everything, you know. And then that's when Frank comes back from having been fired, and he sees him out there in his cutoff shorts on Christmas Eve, trimming his hedges, high on cocaine, and you realize that he has a sadness to him, you know. So that was always sort of in the background of him. And then season 2, of course, you know, he was betrayed by his girlfriend, you know, and ended up shooting up his house and everything. So I think we wanted for season 3, we want him to be happy again, but still we found that we always have to find, like, that's one thing I think about our show is that the characters keep moving forward and they keep learning and changing. So, I mean, it would be very easy if our show was more like, say, of a Family Guy type show or even a Simpsons, which of course, you know, I love the Simpsons because I work in the Simpsons, where the characters, you know, may change a little bit in the course of a single episode, but they always go back to who they are. Like
Right.
Flanders will always be Flanders, you know. So it would be easy to make just Vic the party guy who's always doing like tons of cocaine and everything like that. But for us, it was fun to find the layers in him. And even so, in last season, he started out kind of saying he wasn't doing it anymore, you know, and he was high on life and he was jogging and everything. And there's that moment where Frank says, "You were more fun when you were on drugs." He's like, "All right, that's all I needed to know."
And I'm back. Yeah.
And he digs his thing that I think we wrote a thing called like emergency brick of cocaine out of his couch, whatever. It starts going wild again. So
But that's what's
anyway,
cool
yeah.
But that's what's cool about Epics for Families. There's progression like South Park. It's like one of the only other few cartoons out there that has progression and keeps on going through the season. And it doesn't just like have a 30-minute episode and then everything just reverts back to what it was before. It kind of keeps on going through the season.
Yeah, it's that like elasticity that some shows like The Simpsons obviously has, because they go between decades and it really doesn't. You can always bring the characters back, but this is more serialistic.
It has a progressive storyline.
A progressive storyline and arc.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that was a function of, because when we first came up with the idea for the show many years ago, several years ago, it was before Netflix even was doing shows. I think when we first started talking about this was like 7 or 8 years ago. And Netflix was not yet at that time, like seriously into making original shows. So we thought of it originally as kind of like a Simpsons type show, in that every episode would just be its own little thing. And I remember Bill saying, you know, we'll do the episode where they buy a Christmas tree, or we'll do the episode where they go to the amusement park, whatever, like that. It would just be that kind of thing. And then once Netflix decided they wanted to make it, that's when they told us, like, we see our model of shows as like serialized, like binge-worthy serialized storytelling. So they more or less insisted, or, you know, politely insisted that we do that. And so it was a little scary, but it was very fun to do. And I realized that that's the kind of stuff that I like to watch. Like the shows I loved at the time and still do are like Sopranos and Breaking Bad and Mad Men and you know, shows like that are serialized. So it was really, really fun to do that with comedy and with animation, which I know BoJack came out before us by a couple of months, but felt like we were sort of like one of the first shows to really do that and embrace that.
And I think you're one of if you are the first one that was serialized, animated on Netflix that really blew up. I mean, people, after that first season, people were like, yeah, this is we have to watch this
What is
show.
it like working with Netflix, especially since the humor in this is definitely far more edgy, I think, than a lot of things that people are used to watching? Does Netflix just give you free run, or do they ever step in and say, "Whoa, guys, you got to dial this back"?
Hardly ever do they dial us back. In fact, in the beginning, they were very encouraging to sort of go even further. There's a story that I've told a bunch of times, and Bill tells a bunch of times, which is that in that first season, there's an episode set at Halloween where Bill is out there in his little pickle costume, and he gets beat up on by Jimmy Fitzsimmons, the bully. And we had Jimmy and his two friends, and Netflix came back with a note saying, like, could it be Jimmy and like his 8 friends? Like, could more kids be beating him up? So we were like, all right, that's the kind of note I want to hear.
Yeah.
The only other time we've ever had anything from them was, and it's totally understandable, it was when Vic lost his mind at his party and started shooting up his house. Like, there were a little bit of, it was a horrible, of course, everyone knows gun violence is a terrible thing. And so we just wanted to, they said, like, just as long as it's clear that no one gets really hurt, that kind of thing, So
Right.
The only thing that got hurt was a frog.
They're expendable,
Who eats frogs?
At the end of the day, though, they got to realize too that it's a cartoon.
Yeah. But I mean, that's really the only thing they've ever said anything does. Yeah. But as far as language, as far as, we've seen nudity on the show and other things, they've never really given us a hard time about anything. They've been really great.
I want to hone in a little bit on David Koechner's character because, wow, we've always been fans of David for a long time. And just his everything from weight loss to how he's now treating or is being treated in the series, I think the writing's genius around his character.
Oh, thank you. He's one of my favorite characters. I just tweeted that this morning that he's one of my favorite characters of all time. I mean, not just of Evers for Family, but of anything I've ever done or seen. He's based on a guy who, when I was in college, back in the late 70s and 80s, I worked at a Sears auto center, which is like Sears would have their main store, and then they'd have their auto center, which was like a separate building where you would do like car repairs and get tires. And this guy was the manager of that place, and his name was Bob. His last name was similar to Pogo a little bit, and he was not. I mean, he's certainly exaggerated for comic effect, but he was a big guy who had, like, my memory of him. Again, it's like Frank and his memories. My memory of being a 20-year-old is that this guy would be sitting there at his office, like smoking like a chimney, and that's when everybody smoked all the time back in those days. And like he'd eat like a big old greasy sandwich at his desk while he was talking about, like, here's what we're gonna do, like that, So I mean, I created that character based on that guy, and then we made him even more grotesque and big in terms of his appetites and how horrible he is. And then like you said, I've always been a huge fan of Dave Koechner. I'd never met him before. I'd seen him in many, many things and thought he was hilarious. And it was always been my dream to find some way to have a chance to work with him. So when we went out to him and asked him to do it, and he said yes, I was just one of the happiest days of my whole life. And he came in and he just made that character his own with the voice he does and his physicality. When he stands there at the recording studio, he's always kind of like moving around and doing it all, and like, and then we'll say like, okay, Dave, can we get like we just need some eating noises. All right, here you go. And he'll do like a minute and a half, like, all right. He's so funny. And he's just Dave himself is so funny and such a wonderful guy. He's made the character so great. And then again, it was a thing for us to find a way to not just make him this one note monster, so we found a little bit of vulnerability in him. He has a wife who he loves, Dolores, that we never see, and he has kids, and he has a little bit of regret in his life, and he used to be.
This season, you made him a lot more human.
Yeah, we like to do that. Like, I think eventually, if we're around long enough, we'll find shades in every character. Like the next one we have to work on are the two the two hillbilly boys.
No, they're perfectly dumb the way they are.
Yeah.
It might be the last ones that we never do anything except just make cheap hillbilly jokes. There's one little joke this year that's really funny. That's a favorite of ours, which is that Vic, part of Vic's story this year is that he gets involved a little bit with the band that Kevin has, and the older hillbilly boy Ben is now in the band because we discovered in season 3 that he's this prodigy guitar player.
Right.
But there's a line where he's the one that has his hair kind of falling over his face. So there's a line where Vic is talking to somebody about these kids. He goes, "These kids are great, man." He's like that guitar player. I don't even know if he has eyes.
Yes.
So we thought about a couple of times doing a thing where I think at one point there was going to be a thing where like water came through or something where water was going to wash over them and you were going to see that he literally has no eyes. But he just has skin over his eyes.
Very
but we didn't do
deliberate.
that, so anyway.
That's what I love so much about the show is just these little sight gags that you throw in there, like just seeing billboards in the background, with the old time advertisements on them. And an episode that we wanted to talk about too that I think is just fascinating, especially now, is the R is for Rosie episode.
That we have to dig into because the timing of R is for Rosie, I mean, even you have to look back and go, wow, we didn't see that coming.
Well, it's weird, yeah, you're right, exactly. I mean, it was kind of like we were just talking about the way things were, our show is set in the 70s, but, we have some amazing writers on our staff. The guys who wrote that script joined our staff this year. Luan Thomas and Joe Pierulli are fantastic writers who've also worked on Cobra Kai and a couple other things. So Joe is white, Luan is black, and then we have our amazing one of our executive producers is Mark Wilmore, who I've known forever. I worked with him on the PJs, the show I was on back with Eddie Murphy, and I worked with him on the Simpsons. And his brother is Larry Wilmore, who you may know from podcasts, but he also was hosted the nightly show that was on after kind of the replacement show for Stephen Colbert that was on Comedy Central for a while.
Oh, right.
And Mark was on In Living Color, and anyway, he's so funny, and so we love the Rosie character so much, and he's voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, who's an amazing actor who I've known for a long time as well. And Bill was always very fond of Rosie, and we would give him we started him on this journey in season 3 where, he had a little more, he wanted more out of his life, and he wanted to make a difference in his community. So we started running for office, for this alderman office. So we knew that in this season we wanted to pay that off, but it was hard because he's not a member of the Murphy family. He doesn't live in the neighborhood. He only works with Frank. So we had to find ways to sort of get his story told. And as we started plotting out season 4, we were kind of pushing that stuff further down the road. And as we got to start talking about those later episodes, 5, 6, and 7, that's when we realized there's so much Rosie stuff we want to deal with. Why don't we just give them a whole episode? So we thought of it. We went to Netflix with it, and they were, to their credit again, they were like, "That sounds great." So we pitched them the whole thing. He'd have his own episode. He'd have his own opening titles where he's flying through the air, and they just went with it and gave us their blessing. And Joe and Luan did an amazing job writing the first draft of the script. And then I'll never forget the day we all started working on it together in the room, because what happens is the original writers go off and write an outline, and they come in with a draft of the script, and then we all started kind of working on it all together, and we were just loving it so much. And that's where Mark pitched everyone pitched great jokes, but Mark was he's like the Rosie whisperer in a way, and Smokey, he's the greatest writer of the Smokey character that we have too. Smokey is played by Michael Kenneth Williams from Omar from The Wire. So Mark put some of the great jokes on there, and so a lot of the stuff that ended up becoming sadly predictive was pitched then, about Mark pitched that stuff where they talked about the little flashback to when Rosie and Smokey were young men, and they go, we were going to set the world on fire. And then he goes, yes, we did, 1967. And then he goes, I got the shirt out of it. And there's like a tour shirt of all the riots, 1967 riots, which sadly, a lot of the names and a lot of the cities on there are like Minneapolis and things like that are happening still now,
Right.
50 years later. So yeah, of course we had no idea. That script was written like over almost a year and a half ago. So we had no idea what would be going on.
Any of this happened.
Yeah, but I mean, but things but like Ferguson had happened already, so it's just a thing where I think that's part of the thing is that Smokey even says, he goes, we burned it all down, 67. He goes, man, we didn't accomplish anything, which is sad, which is, I mean, funny, but it's sad that it feels like this time is different now. It feels like whatever the horrible thing, George Floyd and what's going on right now, in Tulsa and everything, that hopefully it'll change. Maybe things will really change this time. But the comedian or the comedy writer, the ironic comedy writer's point of view was like nothing ever changes. So I hope that it does. I really do. But I mean, that's sort of the point of the show, and even the point of the show, which is interesting, is that because as we worked on it, we a lot of the stuff what happens with Rosie, without spoiling too much, is that he gets involved with his being an alderman, and he finds out that it's not all it's cracked up to be, because there's corruption and there's political corruption and racism, but also in his own community, everybody suddenly wants something out of him. They want favors, and the one guy, I forget who pitched this. The one guy says, "Could you name my street after me? It would make it easier for you to remember where I live." It's a little silly, but that's based on Bill Burr's brother. Got elected to a local office back in Bill's hometown area of Boston area, Canton, Massachusetts. I think he became a councilman or whatever it's called there, and that's what happened to him. Like suddenly, everybody wanted something out of him. And when he said he couldn't do it, they're like, "Oh, you've changed. What's wrong with you?
Right.
Whatever,
There's no winning."
Yeah. So it was fun for Rosie to find that it's harder than he thought it would be, and that change is difficult. But then in the little B story, which is somewhat silly about the little girl going on our version of like Soul Train, that's where the change comes. That's where the change comes. About because of TV guy who says something wrong and loses his job. So that's sort of what's going on a lot now too, of people who are
it was timely and poignant, and we thought it was handled. Considering how difficult times are right now, and people are very careful when they're talking about these kinds of issues. You guys handle it well without even knowing the issue was even going to be there at the time. And that is a very cool thing.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's weird. It's so strange as all this was coming on. We were, we were starting to do some pre-publicity talking about the show. And I was texting with the other writers, with Joe and the One, and with Mark, saying like, wow, it's like, this is so weird that episode is now like, it's kind of happening now. And it's very strange to see, and yeah, I mean, it is a weird thing that history keeps repeating itself, and and I think in general too, with the whole show, is that when we first started writing the show like 7 years ago, it was a different time in America then. It was, I mean, even then, I think our attitude was kind of like, isn't it hilarious? Like our point of view of our show is, isn't it hilarious how things have changed and how all that sexism and racism was way back there.
Oh, yeah.
And here we are now, and like it's a lot of it is coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing in this season, to lighten it up a little bit here, one thing with this season that I noticed for the very first time after 4 seasons is during the flying that Frank does up front, that it's all of these things that happen within that specific season that fly by him. I didn't know that for the first 3 seasons. I'm a moron.
Look at you getting all observant.
I know.
Well, it goes by fast. It happens very quick, but yeah, that was my idea. I think it's a little bit of a homage.
I love it. It's a little, right? Yeah, I love it.
It's like an homage a little way to the Simpsons couch gags, where it's a little bit Simpsons couch gag is different every episode, more or less, but But yeah, it made sense to do that, to have fun, and yeah. So if you look at every season, and if you haven't watched it yet, then it's little Easter eggy things going by that have something to do with the season, and if you finish the season and go back and like just kind of freeze
I get it.
through it.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I know the last time that we had you on the show that, Netflix isn't usually very good about telling you if they're going to bring you back for another season, but have you heard yet?
No, we have not.
Damn that.
They like to play their cards a little close to the vest. The one thing that's different this season as opposed to the other three is that Netflix started a thing, I think back in January or February, where they started to list every day. If you go on the Netflix homepage and you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a thing where it says top 10. So it'll list like what's the top 10 movies or shows in that territory on any given day. So every day until today, we were in the top 10 all last week in the United States, and we were even higher in Canada. Thank you, Swami. And even though you haven't watched it yet, but now you'll even higher. And in the UK, and I saw one from Sweden. I saw someone tweeted me from Kenya, like we were in the top 10 in Kenya the other day. So it's great it's amazing to see that people watch it all over the world. Well, but yeah, so we know, and I just get from going online too, like I'm really active in Twitter, like engaging with fans on Twitter, and it's fun to see people talking about it. So it feels like we're doing better this season than last season, but Netflix will tell us eventually, and then we'll start talking about
But they never give you the numbers though, do they?
We've never gotten an actual number from them saying this is the amount of people who watch your show. They say things like you're really doing well, or you did better, you're doing just as good as last year, or things like that. So we'll see if we ever get now perhaps maybe they're being a little more open now. We'll find out eventually when we start come around to seeing if they want to do some more.
Now, I wanted to call out the chat. We've got some people hanging out with us, and Bob's Adventure actually had a question for you, Mike.
Sure.
He wanted to know who your favorite actor is that you've worked with.
Well, that's wow.
Yeah.
You've worked with so many, especially with The Simpsons. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I would be pretty stupid if I didn't say Bill Burr.
Well, and I wanted to bring that up too. Tell me, what is it like working with Bill Burr? I mean, he's incredible.
Bill Burr is the best. He's my answer anyway. He is incredible. He's such a sweet guy. He's so fun. He's so he gives it all. When he's an actor in the booth, every take is different and great. I think he gives an amazing performance in the show. And then we get to work with him as a writer as well. He comes up with some of the funniest stuff. So he's a pure joy. Aside from Bill, like I mentioned, Dave Keckner is incredible. All of our cast is amazing. Justin Long, he always brings amazing stuff. Sam Rockwell. I mean, to work with Academy Award winners and Laura Dern, it's hard. It's really hard for me to pick just one. On F is for Family. As far as The Simpsons is concerned, it might be like some of the baseball people that we've gotten on the show. Because I'm a big baseball fan. This is the Brooklyn Cyclones, who are the Mets minor league team in Coney Island. So we got to go, like Mike Scioscia came in one time and things like that. So yeah. So I mean, I guess maybe I'm sorry. So the best, the most, in terms of like just that pure, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting to meet this person, was on a Simpsons episode I wrote many years ago where Stephen Sondheim was a guest star, and I got to go out to New York and meet him and work with him and record him. So I'm a huge theater person as well, and Sondheim is like, to me, like, he's like my whatever.
I was going to
the white whale.
I was going to ask, because of Bill Burr being on the show, is there any possibilities maybe if season 5 comes out, he's going to bring some of his friends like Joe Rogan or Dave Chappelle on to do some voicing or something like
Well,
that.
I don't know. It usually comes along every year. We see like who has what. Bill has brought in a lot of great people on the show. There's a character on our show named Anthony, who's the little boy who says, "You know what, you know what, you know what," and he's voiced by a friend of Al's, a friend of Bill's, who's a great stand-up comedian named Al Jasharm. And that's actually that voice is based on a bit that Al does in his act about like calling up somebody and getting the kid to answer the phone. And so as we were writing that character, we said, well, we need someone to play the little kid. And Bill was like, oh, how about my friend Al? And so he showed us that clip of Al doing that act where he does that voice, you know what, you know what, you know what. And we're like, that's it. So Al very, very generously let us sort of just adapt his bit from a stage act into the show. Another great character we have on our show is a DJ named Howlin' Hank, and that's played by Josh Adam Myers, who's another very hilarious comedian who's a friend of Bill's. And then we have Snoop Dogg is in this year, season 4.
Right.
You noticed
we saw that.
Snoop
We were
plays
looking
the
for all the
Reverend.
credits, and we're like, Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
He's in everything. He's in my NHL 2020 now.
He's in my 1984 yearbook. I don't know how that happened.
That was an incredible day because we went to his own place. Like of course he has multiple recording studios. So we went to his amazing place that he has in Inglewood, down by not too far from LAX airport, where he has this complex full of recording studios and all kinds of stuff and everything. And so we got to hang out with him and record his part there. That was a huge thrill.
You know what? I'm trying to picture that
Yeah,
in my head.
yeah.
Now,
I was
was
just
Bill
doing that.
was Bill there at the same time?
No, Bill couldn't be there. Bill was back east working on he was making that the movie, the Judd Apatow,
the new movie
at the time.
Yeah. I heard that
Staten
just
Island.
came out. Yeah.
He's so good in it too. It's a really good movie. Bill is phenomenal in it.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. I just heard him on the Joe Rogan show talk about the movie, and he's like, couldn't come out in theaters because obviously there are no theaters right now. So it's on all the streaming services, and you're like, wow, how the world has changed.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way, because
it's just different.
It's just different.
Yeah.
If this is the new normal, though, I want to go back to some of the old ways.
I like the old normal.
I know.
I miss going to the movies. I really do miss. I'm a big moviegoer, especially during the summertime. Like I miss going to see all the Marvels and all the blockbuster movies, and So I don't know. I know they're going to start reopening them, but I don't know if I'll be going back anytime soon.
Now, but you have drive-in movie theaters still in California, correct?
There are a few. Yes, there are a few.
You know what?
That's
we
the
have
best
one
way
of our
to do
best
it,
friends
yeah.
owns a drive-in movie theater in Chicago that we were going to every single year. And I tell you, if you go back to doing a movie that way, you may never go into a movie theater again.
It's the best experience.
I have a funny story about drive-in movies, which is that my son, who's now in college, but at the time when the Simpsons movie came out, he was 10. And so he did not like going to regular movie theaters because he didn't like the loudness of it and everything. And he's gotten over that. But so we wanted to go see the Simpsons movie. So it was playing at this drive-in out in, it's called Montclair, which is, about 50 miles or so outside of LA. So we went there, and it was the opening weekend of the Simpsons movie. And we pulled up, and it was this giant line of cars getting in to pay for it. And it was playing, the theater was playing like 3 other movies as well. And as we get to the front thing to pay for it, I go, 2 for the Simpsons movie. He's like, sorry, it's sold out. And so I was like, oh, no, really? He's like, yeah, sorry, it's sold out. And I said, look, because I had
Did
to
you
help
play
write
the card?
I did. I helped write the Simpsons movie. So I said, look, man, whatever. I said, look, I never do this. I swear I never do this, but I'm a writer on The Simpsons. I helped write the movie.
Check the credits.
Can you help me out? Right? He goes, I'm a writer on The Simpsons. I helped write this movie. And he goes, well, you should be really happy that it's sold out. He wouldn't let me in.
Are you kidding?
Wow.
Yeah, the capacity of cars, whatever the law, So then I said, okay,
Sure.
buy me a ticket for Monsters Inc. or whatever it was, But then I said, okay, we're gonna well, I'll buy a ticket for whatever that movie was, but I'll sneak in and go to the Simpsons one anyway. And then the guy came by his little security cart and said, like, get out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So then,
That is,
Wow.
you know what? That is so
That's
classic
hysterical.
Hollywood.
yeah.
Not
So
on the
then
list.
So then my son buckled down and he went to see it with me at a regular movie theater like a day or two later, and he got over it and he enjoyed it. So
Sorry, sir, the park is closed.
yeah, it was like Wally World.
But that actually brings up an interesting question. What is it like seeing your work played back to you, whether it's looking at the entire season of F is for Family, on Netflix, or going to see your movie? Do you evaluate it? Are you satisfied? What's your feeling over it?
Yeah. Well, it's when you work on TV, it's hard because you hardly ever get to see it with an audience. So on those few times when we do, it's always really fun. In the past, when we would bring out a new season of F is for Family, we would have an event, usually some kind of premiere or something, or sometimes we have a screening of an episode to help maybe get Emmy votes or whatever. So the last time we did that was last year for season 3. And that was really, really fun to be like a large theater and hear people laugh and get to hear, because otherwise you're just sort of experiencing it at home. I like it. Bill doesn't. It's interesting. Bill Burr will hardly ever watch those things because he's a master, of course, of stand-up. So he's so incredible that he's doing it forever and he's so good at it. So that if he's on stage and he can feel like maybe the crowd isn't with him or he's not whatever, he knows what to do to get them back.
Right.
But when it's a show like ours, it's fixed and like there's nothing you can do about it. So like he tells me he's like he can't watch it because if it's not going well or whatever, like there's nothing you can do about it. So he usually tends not to watch it. But I usually try to because I like to hear the laughs. And, I come from theater originally from doing like performing on stage, like doing comedy on stage, like sketch comedy. So I really like.
You were part of a duo for many years.
I was as I first got started doing a 2-person kind of comedy team with my old writing partner. Yeah, so I miss being on stage. I miss like hearing the laughs and everything like that. So it's fun. And then when I watch it, it's interesting. I tend to sometimes remember, like I'll try to like experience it as just the show it is, but sometimes I'll remember, like my mind will flash back to being in the room, like the day that we wrote this thing or that thing. So I'll remember like in the first episode of season 4 of F is for Family, there's a thing about I mentioned earlier about polio and polio crutches and stuff like that, and we were looking for something around that line, and one of our writers, Jessica Williamson, pitched this thing about what if it was this polio, and it sounds like it's horrible. Polio is a horrible disease, but
polio is funny. Even just the word polio is funny. I'm sorry.
But even that's a thing now. We're like, diseases are coming back. Diseases that we thought we had eradicated.
Well, I know.
Well, on the rise again. But
parents,
I
vaccinate your kids.
Yes, definitely vaccinate. But I remember when I watched that episode, I remember being in the writer's room and hearing her say, "What if it was polio?" and how hard we laughed. And so that's what I tend to remember. The moment that actor performed that bit or whatever like that. So it's all kind of like a big flashback in a way sometimes when I watch stuff that I've done like that.
So I have to say this because I can't believe these words are actually coming out of my mouth. Season 32 of The Simpsons.
Yes.
Coming out in September.
Yes, indeed. 32.
That's insane.
I know. It's insane. It is insane. And we're very excited about it. Yeah, I mean, I've been there. When I first started The Simpsons, it was, my first day was in December of 2001. So that was season 13 was on television, and we were starting to write season 14. So that's almost 20 years. And it's incredible. I mean, even then, everyone says like when you first started, like a couple more years to go, and it's amazing.
A couple of years in and out.
I mean, it's incredible to me that like it still continues doing well. We're doing well enough on Fox to keep going, and now if if you want to see the older episodes, they're all on Disney Plus.
Right.
And
we
keep hearing
months ago. Yeah.
We keep hearing that like it's one of the top things on Disney Plus, you know. So we hope that means that they'll want to continue doing more, you know. And as long as we're all healthy and the actors are up for it, and I feel like we've still got stories to tell and things for Homer to do, and you know, and I'm really very excited about a lot of the episodes we've got coming up.
Now, would you like to see 32 seasons for F is for Family? I know that might be a little bit of a loaded
like,
question.
hell yeah, I do.
But
Yeah. I mean, at the rate we go, I'd be around 130, 120 years old. Yeah. Well, it also just takes a little while to make them all. I mean, we make 10 episodes a season, and because the way Netflix works, we can't put them out until they're all done. Right. So that's why. I mean, if we were like on a more of a weekly release schedule, it wouldn't be that long between seasons, because we just put episodes out as they're done. So we tend to average about a year and a half between seasons. So if we got to 30 seasons, that would be whatever, like 50 years or something. 45 years. So
wow.
Who knows what TV will be like then? But yeah, I mean, by that point, we'd be into the 80s, or who knows? I mean, the characters keep moving forward in time.
I got a quick.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So, out of the shows that you don't work on, what would be your favorite adult cartoon that you watch on a regular basis?
Boy, probably Rick and Morty, which is just phenomenal. And I've just started to watch. I've seen the first couple of episodes of Solar Opposites, which is another show it's on Hulu, and it is created by Justin Roiland, who is the co-creator with Dan Harmon of Rick and Morty. So if you like Rick and Morty, watch Solar Opposites. It's got a similar feel, a science fiction-y kind of thing. It's about aliens living here, and it's very, very funny as well. I'm amazed at Rick and Morty in that it's so fast, it's so funny. There's a lot of heart to it as well, even though as crazy as it is. And just from a purely production standpoint, every episode has hundreds of aliens and different characters, and they're all these crazy worlds, and it's mind-boggling to me. So that's my favorite animated show right now. My favorite just comedy show of all time right now is What We Do in the Shadows. FX.
Yeah. I loved the movie.
Yeah, the movie. You got to watch the original movie too, from the '90s. It was kick-ass. But I agree on Rick and Morty, but you should check out also Primal.
I don't know that one.
On adult.
Okay.
It's freaking amazing.
And the granddaddy of them all of Adult Swim shows is Robot Chicken. So I'm a big fan of Robot Chicken, and I know a lot of the guys who work on that. I did some work with them on something else a few years ago.
Primal's done by the same guys that do Venture Bros. So it's like,
okay.
Very cool. Well, Michael, we're here at the top of the hour. This is obviously, the end of the show. I can't thank you enough for being on. And having 3 Emmys now to date, all 3 of them for The Simpsons, I swear you will get the forward for F is for Family for this season.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Oh, that would be nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers to you. Yeah. Cheers, Swami. Thanks as always
y'all.
for hanging out with us.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, and thank you everyone who's been hanging out in the chat. I know that we haven't spent a lot of time. I see tons of chats rolling through. But,
Well, we're thankful you're here. I saw Container Man had joined us a while ago. I know Kim is here.
Charles
Bob's Adventure. Patrick Fulmer.
Bunch of people.
Yes.
So,
if you have any questions for me about the show, you can tweet me either at my Twitter handle is Mike Price in LA, or FIFF Netflix is our writer's account. So I usually tend to answer questions. If you want to ask anything like that, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, and Michael, is always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yes, yeah.
And thank you again, and happy Father's Day tomorrow.
You too. Thank you. Thanks so much. So nice to talk to you guys again.
Take care.
Take care, y'all.
Cheers.